Today's guest is Piers Dormeyer. He's the CEO at EagleView. All right, Piers, thank you for coming on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, Tats.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in. I know, EagleView, me in the roofing industry, shown great success and growth, and also gone on to launch numerous technologies and innovations. So I'm excited to hear about, your involvement, maybe the origin story for those that don't know. But yeah, I'm excited to dig into it.
Yeah, no, happy to tell some of those stories. It's been an amazing business. We've got just incredible customers, and it's exciting. Just all the work we feel like we still have to do ahead of us. So.
Sure. Before we get into like the early part of the story, I think you've been involved in what, 2013 or something?
Yeah, that's right. It's over a decade, something
Yeah.
11 and a half years. It's crazy how the time has flown by.
Yeah. And what were your early sort of thoughts? Like what your background, sort of schooling or growing up? What were your sort of interests back then?
You know, um, my it's funny, you go to school for one thing, you end up doing something totally different, but it's interesting how it kind of came around. But grew up as an army brat, so I did a lot of travel really all over the world. I grew up in the Florida area and ended up at University of Florida, go Gators, and an engineering school, and I was a biomedical engineering guy. So at that time, right around 2000s, it was really struggling to find, a place to, a gainful employment, right? So it was a dot-com crash and whatnot. And I'd done some work in the medical device side of things, which interestingly enough, it was some other disruptive technologies that use software to measure some vitals, which is interesting, and hold that thought. But then my career really started me at Elk Building Products, which later got acquired by GAF, and I was now all of a sudden thrown into the roofing industry as this guy who'd been studying medical for the last several years. But I just loved it. I loved the people. I loved our customers, and go back 20 years later, all my buddies are roofing contractors and general contractors, and here we are. But along the way, I spent some great years on the manufacturing side of the business. I did a little bit on the marketing side of the business as well, and found my way into some startups, which really, in a roundabout way, kind of led me to EagleView. And I made the connection not that long ago, but strangely enough, we're kind of using data and software to measure things and things that are vital to the business, right? So it kind of came full circle, and I was like, wait, that's kind of creepy. So, but yeah, that's the story of Piers in about 60 seconds.
Sure. I mean, you said 2000s, the tech bubble burst. I guess EagleView started 2008, which had its own problems. But problems could turn into opportunities. How did EagleView start?
So EagleView really was born in this world where the roofing industry, construction, and insurance kind of comes together. So in a nutshell, it really started with a contractor that had a software developer brother-in-law that really tried to solve this problem of measuring roofs and really trying to keep off of them, especially in summer. It's not a particularly easy job to go crawl on a roof and throw tape and try and get an accurate measurement. And even if you can do it, do you really want to? It's dangerous work. There's prone to error, hard to train, all of those things. So really, it started with a very incredibly bright, talented computer scientist, really trying to using photographs, imagery taken at different angles of a building to kind of create this 3D model, this wireframe. And then there's quite a bit of science and math behind it that really enabled us to build these 3D models and extract things like measurement data that could then be used to help contractors So a lot of folks know about our roof reports, but also help on the insurance side of things with homeowners that are trying to get their property restored after a claim, for example. And we really were partnered with Pictometry out of the Rochester area, who are the experts, absolute best in the world at flying airplanes and collecting high resolution imagery at scale. So I joined the business right when those two companies came together, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, it came together. Was it a partnership acquisition? Sorry, I'm not familiar with what the relationship exactly at the point was.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a merger. It was very similar companies that essentially vertically integrated, and ultimately EagleView, that was very focused on the computer science aspect of the feature extraction, derivative data creation, kind of merged with their chief principal and most important supplier, which was Pictometry. And in their own right, they're doing their own computer science, they're doing their own computer vision work, but really focused on delivering solutions into the government vertical more than the commercial verticals. So when the two companies came together, you really couldn't have a better match. It's hard to imagine two companies that would make more sense, kind of integrating.
Sure, and from the technology point, makes sense. I mean, team culture and stuff like that. Was there some work that needed to be done, or was that seamless as well?
Yeah, I think whenever you bring organizations together, there's certainly an integration and a culture dynamic. I think that you never get it perfectly right, right? So there's that. I'd say that incredibly talented people. You had a Seattle company and then a company based in New York, so very different cultures. But after 10, 12 years later, I think we've got a fairly well-oiled machine at this point. So yeah, it's all come together.
Yeah, and when you first came into EagleView, what was your role and how's it evolved?
It's funny. The role at the time, we were still very much in startup mode. Back when I joined the company was only a couple years old, so really forming those early growth plans. So I wore a lot of hats. Principally, you find yourself mainly in kind of a sales and business development kind of a role, but then you're kind of changing the organization on the fly. You're trying to build new businesses. You're having a whole lot of input into product development and design. You're probably wearing a little bit of a marketing hat. So I would just say front of the house. you know I wasn't smart enough to be the guys that were actually cooking up the solutions, but I would say that it's certainly front of the house, and then just wore a lot of hats along the years. And especially as we started to open up new vertical markets and solve more complex and difficult challenges, just constantly having to go in and adjust your plans and rebalance, and allocate resources and things like that. So
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Yeah, and I mean, how much of your growth, I mean, you talked about front end marketing and all that stuff. How
Mhm.
much of that was sort of listening to your customers and just grinding the tech side or the product side, and how much of that was just, pushing adoption? Like what really kind of accelerated the business?
I'd say the answer is probably all of the above. Um, and I get asked the question all the time about how you manage your time and where do you spend your time. And just straight up mantra is you can never spend too much time in the field with your customers. And that kind of goes across every function in the business, right? Whether you're obviously you're a salesperson, so you better be out there. But your finance folks, your engineering folks, getting that context can just help you certainly do your job a whole lot better, design the systems better to, at the end of the day, really meet the only party that really matters at the end of the day is satisfying the customer. If you satisfy the customer, then everything else kind of falls into place. So yeah, early days was certainly testing out ideas. We had really taken something to market that really didn't exist before. It was net new, and there were existing workflows, and there were requirements that needed to be met, and we didn't all really necessarily understand all of the different use cases all that well, and the ecosystem, and how all these things interact and integration. So lots and lots of pounding the street, really making sure that the work that we're doing is meeting the need of the customer. And again, focusing on the meeting the customer requirements, building what they want, not what you assume they want or what you would like them to want, is probably the key thing there. And if you do that, then you find that you have a lot less adoption challenges. So,
Mm.
I find that the adoption challenges generally come from a lack of very clear, well understood design and use cases. So, not that you don't get those, but that's that's how we.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And because I always wonder, like, innovation is always hard. How much of it is like incremental improvement, things that your customer can tell you, how much of it is like insight, whether it's from inside your company and outside, and how much of it is luck, right? Like, just finding something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you hope that that last part is as the smallest proportion, but not always. I mean, there's been a fair amount of getting lucky along the way, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, how have you tried, I mean, as an organization to sort of gain that insight? I mean, it's always easy to do a survey or talk to your customer and stuff like that. I mean, I think you partly answered it by being out there and near the customer and stuff like that. But how have you tried to gain insight?
Yeah, and then again, this is one of those really critical decisions that you got to make in the early stage. Even working with startups and whatnot today, you got to get to the end user, and the end user isn't always going to be the buyer, and you got to get access to the information and all of those details that you would miss in the surveys, and listening to a podcast, or not that that's not great, but you got to get into the field, you got to get into the work, you got to get into the nitty gritty. You want to be in the roofing business, go put on a roof, right? Spend some time actually doing the work. You'll start to understand it better. You'll gain respect. You'll gain access. Um, there's absolutely no substitute for that. And it's also understanding that if you're going to scale a business, and even in sales, you might really prefer your customer to want to buy from you something over the phone. It's a whole lot easier. It's a lot less expensive, but it might not necessarily work. You might have to actually get out there in the field, grind it out, and earn your stripes that way. And I think EagleView, did a lot of that work in the early days, and really had to grind it out. And if we didn't, I doubt we would be where we are.
Sure. You had a base, but then the question goes, where do you go from there with technologies? I know on your website it said 300 patents. I mean, how did you navigate? Because no company, even how big it is not unlimited in terms of resources. Like, what sort of rationale do you had from going from one area to another, and now you have more of a expansive, like a capability that can apply over multiple things. How did you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, the resources are always finite, and they're always way less than what you think you need. So the probably our I mean, I'm serious too. Our biggest single challenge as a company is prioritizing our available investment dollars in terms of R&D. I always say that we've never met an idea around here that we didn't absolutely love. I mean, we don't just like things, we love things, and we want to do all of the things. So I think there's a couple of principles that are really important. One of them is kind of understanding where you're really strong, right? So that focus on the core is really important. So one of the things, where does that take you? Well, um, these use cases, these problems that we think that we can solve that are workflow related. They require very high resolution, very accurate, precise details. Those types of data products that we can build, that we kind of feel like only we can really build at that level of quality. That's going to get a lot of attention for us. Another kind of key principle is we're not in the 20% ROI business. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to sell you something that's $100 and you're going to feel really good about getting $120 worth of value out of it. We aim to build these products for the enterprise that deliver hundreds of percent of ROI or greater, right? So if you can actually make it work, and you can quote unquote transform that workflow, you've kept somebody from having to go to a job site, you've kept them off a roof, you've reduced risk, you've taken a process that was much more costly, and you've done it some innovative new way, and absolutely driven a massive amount of value. So those two principles are really important, and that's why you don't see us do things that yeah, there's lots of things that we could do, that we could sell more things to you because you're buying them from somewhere and you're our customer. But if it doesn't really kind of fit some of these key areas, we're not going to really focus on those areas. And the cool thing about what we do is there's no shortage of very, very interesting, opportunities and problems to focus on.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, hundreds of, or a large ROI makes sense for 20%. It's hard to get people to overcome the pain of doing something or changing something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it. So, yeah.
No, that's very cool. I like it. So you said there's no shortage of ideas that I love. I mean, built into the culture, the hiring, the leadership promotes it. Um, is there tangible things you do to do that? It doesn't sound like it. It just seems like it happens with the people you have, or you're attracted or retained.
Yeah, no, we have lots of different ways that we foster innovation, and I mean, lots of different ways. I think I would say that there's some that are kind of top down oriented, and then some that are bottom up oriented, right? So, to give you a couple of examples, to fill an innovation pipeline, there's some areas that are just really, really obvious for us. So there's some new technology that a lot of this is tech enabled. There's some new breakthrough technology that's coming available, and somebody would pop out of the closet and take my tech CEO card away if I didn't mention Gen AI at least once in every podcast. But you've got these transformational, groundbreaking tech that are going to unlock a lot of different kind of very cool opportunities. So we're kind of thinking through, great, how does this capability enable us to do even more or solve a related problem that we already really well understand? So our assess drone solution, for example, is for roof inspections. It flies all by itself. It generates its own flight plan. It flies completely autonomously, and then it uses this computer vision algorithm to go and find all your hail strikes, right? And then it lands all by itself. It's super cool. Things like that are very near and dear to our customers. They drive the ROI. It's huge, and just kind of came out organically through a lot of conversations we've been having with both carriers as well as contractors. And we love the fact that that can eliminate some of the conflict between the carriers and the contractors too. So that's one example. And then some of the things from a top-down perspective, just from a cultural perspective, hackathons. If you're familiar with hackathons, we do a couple of these a year, sometimes more. Usually they have some sort of a theme, and probably one of the most fun things that I get to do is kind of sit on the committee and quote unquote judge, all of these different projects that our engineers are and product people are coming up with, and they're doing some just really cool things.
Yeah.
So
How are these hackathons promoted, or what type of groups or individuals that participate in these things?
Generally speaking, in our organization, there's lots of different product development engineering kind of disciplines that are represented, which is really cool, right? Because we have a very software, AI kind of driven, engineering R&D team. We've also got some folks that do some way out there, kind of next level technology, kind of future tech work, and then we've got a bunch of hardware guys, right? So they're working on the newest camera systems and image processing technologies and drones and what we can do with things like that. So generally speaking, we might have some kind of general guidance where, hey, the theme of this particular hackathon is going to be around deploying AI in a business process. It could be an internal process, it could be a product thing, and then you really take the guardrails off. You give them the time. You say, hey, this is your time to do this. We'll make some T-shirts. We'll give out some cool prizes, and we promote that heavily internally. And we encourage, we encourage a lot of creativity. Try to not really restrict people. If they come up with something that isn't eminently, immediately commerciable, is that a word? um, that's okay, right? Because you
Yeah.
never know what that science or that discovery is going to lead you to.
Yeah, yeah, might spur another idea, but basically you're not limiting people by their ability to code or anything like that. You're just saying, hey, bring a concept, present it however you want, um, you know, put a case forward. That's very cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you can. That's a really important point too. I mean, innovation can come from anyone, and innovation can come from a contract lawyer in your organization. It can come from a salesperson. It can come from someone answering the phone in customer service. You can pair those people up with folks that know how to get behind, a line of code, and hopefully make some of that a reality.
Yeah, very cool. I'm always interested people that kind of are in between or are kind of the technology space, and let's say for us, it'd be the construction space,
Hmm.
because there's different aspects of it. I think there's many great things about the construction industry, but I think from the tech side, the knowledge share and the speed at which those things occur is a lot. And I've always wondered, what else could we do, as an organization or just as an industry to sort of speed up that knowledge share? Because sometimes there's holding things close to the vest, worried about competition, but in the tech industry there seems to be like building building in public. There's all sorts of things in and around sort of knowledge share that in collaboration that makes everything move quicker. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do, and it's I'm gonna kind of give a plug here for the Roofing Alliance, just specifically around construction, and an organization that I really love. But the Roofing Alliance is the NRCA's foundation, and they focus on a couple of key pillars around sustainability and educate. But one of them is technology, right? And the way that foundation works is they'll listen to kind of funding requests and entrepreneurs that have ideas in other universities, and they'll fund a heat study, or they'll look at some different projects every time they get together. One of the coolest initiatives they've had is they've built a roofing course through Clemson University. Right, there's a Dr. Gajar over there was just built this course, and it was like, I don't. It's so simple. Anybody can take it. It's a class for students at Clemson. Anybody can take this course, and he's building more and more of that training. So you can go to the Roofing Alliance to find out more. But there are organizations that are promoting that, or at least are starting to build some of that architecture. I think we just need to get people more aware and engaged, and then I think that there's plenty of folks, myself included, that would love to help drive, help incubate ideas from entrepreneurs and people that have thoughts on how to improve our industry.
Yeah, that's exciting. I had of another show, and we had them on, and they're talking about it, and it's exciting to hear that they're on the edge of the possibility of turning that into a minor at some point, something more, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's I mean, I love the idea how you can be in this industry, and roles like you and I in manufacturing at some point in construction, and you can go and get like a top tier college coursework, for a couple $100, get some top tier. You can put that on your LinkedIn. People know that you're investing in yourself. You're learning a little bit of background. I think this is a long time coming, and really excited to see that kind of take flight.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. One of the things that you mentioned earlier, but the idea around a company that you focus software, imagery, you have planes, right? And that was based on a very strategic thing that was done early on. Um, I mean, I guess, with all this technology that's becoming available online, I guess those are the things that sort of keep you ahead, right? In terms of the accuracy and the resolution of the images. I mean, what is it like? How do you look at your organization? Because you have software, you have planes, you have technology analysis. Like how does that all come together in the organization?
So yeah, it's a little complicated, but it makes sense in this beautiful kind of way, right? It really is kind of an orchestra in the sense that these sound very different. They look very different in terms of business elements, but they completely accompany and really create this product that's really incredible. Um, it's the best way to think about it is the airplanes and the drones and whatnot are really the key means of getting the raw material that we use as the basis for everything that we do, and it couldn't be more important, right? Because when the reason why we fly these aircraft, and we're constantly investing in camera and sensing equipment and all of that, and trying to stay way ahead of the curve, and it's very expensive. It's capital intense. There's lots and lots of these aircraft, and there's hangars, and we hire mechanics and chief pilots and all of these things like any airline would have. But the output is this base layer of data that really only we have access to, and our customers, the licensees. And it makes such a difference when you're able to run those machine learning models and extract that data. If you are trying to understand how a highway construction project is going, and you can get a satellite to tell you that. You can get a satellite to kind of get an idea how the overpass is being constructed. But if you need to know, right, like the condition of the concrete, right, if you need to be able to get very, very precise down to tenths of an inch or less level of accuracy, because your budget's counting on it, or any number of things. If you need to know what the energy production is going to look like on that building, you need something that's really special. So that's really critical. And then after we kind of capture that, so that, think of it, the hardware side of the business is really building that data set, and then there's quite a bit of photogrammetry and processing, and to basically publish this data that is completely clean and seamless. That's when this other team of really software engineers go to work, and then it's like art of the possible. I mean, you're extracting 3D models and condition, and 100 different use cases that we're focused on. Vegetation encroachment on power lines, so that we can hopefully mitigate forest fires and things like that. There's just hundreds of different use cases.
Yeah, no, that it just seems endless, right? In terms
Yeah.
of, how you can sell package it and sell it. You mentioned before between the contractors and the carriers. I mean, obviously that level of accuracy, kind of can lead to agreement over what's what, and I guess
Yeah.
that's what that helps on both sides.
It is, and it's one of those things that we're really focused. Like personally, I'm really interested in trying to figure out how we can reduce some of that conflict, because at the end of the day, the contractor wants to take care of the homeowner, get the roof built, get the warranty, and do his job. At the end of the day, the homeowner just wants to get their house restored or their project taken care of, and the carrier's more concerned than anything with making sure that that's a happy homeowner, and that the dispute there's not any disputes, and that the time to get the claim taken care of is reduced, so that they stay a happy customer forever, and then their kids sign up with them for policies and all the rest of it. So I think everybody at the end of the day kind of wants the same thing, and if we can kind of remove some of the friction in the middle of the process, it's going to benefit everybody, but principally that building owner, that homeowner in the middle.
Yeah, I went to the website. I noticed that you've done some work around disaster mitigation and response. Walk me through that.
So that's a fun one, right? So that's a and when I say fun, I mean pretty much the opposite. But it's really important work. We've been very active, especially here in Florida, where I am, with the recent storms and Helene in the Carolinas and Florida. But yeah, we call it our disaster recovery program, and this is one of the most important things that we do. And what we do is, effectively, as soon as there's been some kind of event, some kind of a catastrophe, some sort of disaster, and that can look like a lot of different things, but certainly hurricanes are probably one of the best examples. We're up in the air, and we're flying those areas, we're flying those counties, those impacted areas, as soon as it's safe to fly. So as soon as we can get the clear airspace, and we can get over under the clouds, and over that area, and that data then is processed, rush. We can use a combination of different assets, different aircraft, different modes to get that information, and usually within a handful of hours, we're able to go back to the first responders, the public safety people. They're able to understand what areas that, you have power lines down, you've got dangerous conditions. They can better mobilize, triage what they're looking for. Then the other government bodies are also pretty interested, but then you've also got your insurance carriers. They want to understand, where their policies are, and if they've been affected, and they can get the jump on responding to that area. And then, of course, you got lots of contractors too, and even manufacturers that want to understand what their warranty exposure might look like after an event like that. So, really important to get very, very high quality data, so that you can see better, you see more things, you can make better decisions, but also the speed to getting that is really important. So we spend an incredible amount of time, always tweaking that process, just so that we can respond very, very quickly. It's almost like pulling together a SWAT team. I mean, you've got your normal course of business, which kind of has one set of sort of time delivery expectations, and then you've got the other one, and it's 30 people that aren't sleeping very much for several days in order to deliver the mission, and they're happy to do it, and they're heroes for getting it done. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so, and that's not just hurricanes. That's the fires in Maui. That's wildfires in California. We were even flying volcanoes a few years ago, and certainly tornadoes and other events.
Yeah. How do you I'm always curious at how those are structured, because I knew, growing up in my career, I learned a lot from like a crisis manager on the PR side, and they have sort of like protocols on response and this and that, and they're all wired in. How do your team stay in touch with all that, and keep it a tight sort of response time? Like how is it how's those sort of things go into that group and respond?
So they're all the folks that are really driving a lot of the response and the execution of a program like that. They're all pros. I mean, they're some of these, they're pilots. They know what they're doing, and then there's just they're very professional operators, and you'll generally have a program manager at the center of that, and he's got multiple calls and check-ins, and there's meteorologists, and there's hey, these are the decisions we got to make, and here's the information that just came in, and folks are operating on this timeline, and we've been doing this for a while, so they've got a pretty good process down. And then literally from storm to storm, we might change things a little bit and try to improve, and we always do a post-mortem, like, okay,
Mm.
week after we get done with this, Helene, it's okay, what could we have done better? And then we expect that maybe we'll have 6 months before we need to do that, and then invariably, like a week later, we're doing it all over again. We're still trying to improve our performance. but
Oh,
this
yeah.
but this season was a little aberrant.
Yeah, but it's a great thing, you are doing with the organization there for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, when you're not, running around, doing this for the organization, I know I've heard you're a big personal development person. What sort of things do you do to sort of, sharp, keep the knife sharp?
You know, um, I'm a big fan of yeah, constantly trying to improve. So I'm a total bookworm. That's one thing. So I'm an incredibly curious person anyway, but I'm a bookworm. I think staying curious, reading a lot, that's important. I also love the availability through these platforms. I mean, I talked about Clemson. I think that's really great for the roofing industry, but Coursera, the amount of information that you can get at a relatively low cost from very, very high quality educators on all kinds of things. You want to understand a SQL database, have at it. If you want to understand, some financial analysis and valuation, you're going to find it, and it's going to be from Wharton School or Stanford. It's really, really cool. So I utilize resources like that, and then taking care of the body. You gotta be, if the mind's going to be clear, the body has to be in good shape too. So just try to stay vigilant about getting the regular exercise and getting outside.